Now, in previous videos, you mentioned that there was an importance around getting enough sleep and the concerns of fatigue. Now, today you also want to talk about a topic called sleep hygiene. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, thanks, Brendan. And I'm very happy to talk about sleep. And if I did my career all again, I must admit I would take more interest in sleep, much earlier in my career. So sleep is actually really crucial to maintain, being mentally healthy and not getting depressed. And also we know sleep's clearly very good for your physical health. So sleep's actually really important. And there's this kind of funky thing. It's a bit old-fashioned. It's called sleep hygiene. It sounds, kind of like a bit 1950s. And in fact, you can Google sleep hygiene. And that's actually what I want to talk about. So sleep and getting to sleep and having a good amount of sleep works best around routine. And of course, one thing we don't have after a natural disaster, and one thing that just goes out the window, is routine. I know a lot of people that are not living in their houses. I know people that are still sharing houses with relatives, and one person I saw this morning was moving into their new kind of rental on the weekend. So there's a lot of lack of routine that's happening at the moment. So sleep hygiene says there are a bunch of things you really should do every day and night to guaranteed sleep. So it goes like this. Starting with the day, you should not have daytime naps if you're not getting good sleep at night, because every minute you sleep during the day is kind of like a minute you don't need at night. So during the day, you have to stay awake. That's the first thing. The second thing is after about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it varies for everybody, you need to stop taking stimulants. And by this I mean caffeine, coffee, tea, and unfortunately chocolate and other things that have kind of anything that causes a bit of a stimulant. Some people, by the way, are on medications and they don't realise they're stimulants. They should talk to their doctor about it and see if they can take them in the morning. So no daytime naps, no stimulants after about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then in the evening, you should try to get a routine. You should get a routine about what happens before dinner, having dinner at a regular time, having a routine after dinner that might involve, for children doing homework, or for grown-ups doing some chores, watching a bit of TV, fitting in a shower routine, and then doing it all the same every night, and then getting into bed at the same time. That's the next thing. Now, the last thing is, well, there's actually two more things. When you're in bed, there's increasing evidence that screens of any sort, smartphones or iPads or laptops or TVs, don't kind of go well for sleep. So in fact, ideally, you should have the last 20 or 30 minutes in bed reading or doing something that doesn't involve screens. Reading is great because reading actually involves a lot of concentration, gets people tired and makes them sleepy. So that's normal sleep hygiene, and you should try to do that, every night. Now the last thing is a bit of troubleshooting. So what happens when you can't get to sleep, either can't get to sleep or you wake up and can't get back to sleep and you're kind of rocking and rolling in bed? Well, if you spend too much time in bed trying to get to sleep but not succeeding, you start to associate bed with not sleep. And that's really bad. You want to associate being in bed with sleep. So if you can't get to sleep for as soon as 15 or 20 minutes, you should get out of bed. You should sit in a chair. You should not turn on the screens. Ideally, you should do some reading. And when you're feeling tired, try to sleep again. Hop back into bed and try to sleep. And even if you have to do that 2 or 3 times, it's much better doing that than rolling around in bed for hours, associating bed with not sleeping. So again, you can look this up on the internet, you can find these little guides about sleep hygiene, but that's it. It's no napping during the day, it's no stimulants in the early evening or evening. It's having a really good routine up to bed and then into bed and then something like reading.
Very interesting, Brett. Thank you. Now, I myself am back at home with mum and dad following the flooding event, so I'm going through a lot of timing on insurance claims and that sort of thing. So being back at work, I find that most of the time I have to do that is after dinner and sometimes closer to bed. Now, recently there's been apps and settings on phones and tablets called night light or blue light reduction. Now, they claim that this doesn't interfere with you as much as a pure screen light does. Is this a little bit of a myth in terms of getting to sleep, and does it have the same effect?
Okay, thanks. And that's a really interesting question in that I actually have a registrar, a doctor at the moment who's doing some research into blue light. So, the world is actually very interested in blue light and very interested in its kind of therapeutic benefits. From my perspective, it's a little bit too early to tell. However, that's not the kind of screen time I'm talking about. So I think those kind of things will probably turn out to be okay. The screen time I'm talking about is things which are highly stimulatory. So I saw, one teenager once, not from this city, not from this state, none of you know this person, who was having night terrors. And of course his favourite thing was to watch Predator late at night. And, it's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? So what I'm talking about is not getting onto your favourite YouTube, getting onto your favourite Instagram, getting onto Snapchat, or even reading an online newspaper that is stimulatory and actually gets the brain turned on. Using a screen, if you like, for background music works for some people. Again, blue light I think's okay. But none of that stuff that actually stimulates the brain. The idea is to get into a sleep routine.
Well, thanks for clarifying that for me, Brett. Look, that's all we have time for today. And following the comment last week, really appreciate the input. And if there's anything else that you'd like to hear from Brett McDermott, please send it through, shoot an email, or just comment on Facebook again. Have a good week.